What is going down, my YouTube family? It is your boy Zary, and I had the artifact enhancement planned for today, but then the updates for patch 3.2 dropped, so I wanted to go over them for anybody who hasn't seen them, who follows the channel. And you know, a lot of other YouTubers talked about it, and I'm going to talk about it as well, but the book requirements are just getting out of hand. And it really makes, like, pulling a legendary just kind of feel like, yay, alright, I got a legendary. And don't get me wrong, some of them can definitely help you unbooked, but you watch YouTube videos of, you get excited because you're like, I got this person, and you watch YouTube videos and they're nuking people, this, that, and the third, and it just doesn't work that way. So I really hope they address ways to get bucks. I just really do. I mean, you pull a legendary character, and I think it was Ash who said it, then legendary books are $20 a piece, and they need 18 books. So you need another $300 to upgrade somebody. I mean, that's just stupid. But these champions look really good. So let's get into that. We're just going to talk a little bit about it and go over it from there. So, a new raid update. Patch 3.2, and I got to give them credit on this. They're putting out patches more regularly, and they're just not like, here's some champions. Like, we're getting a whole bunch of new champions in here. But we're also receiving permanent extension to the daily login reward, which is about time. That's been a sore spot for many people, and I'm getting to that point on my primary account where I'm almost there, and so now I'll be able to continue getting some rewards, some quality of life improvements. So I'm interested to see what those quality of life improvements are. Now, if we can drag and drop a character easier, it's not what I'm hoping for, but we'll wait and see what they are. But we're going to go over these new champions, and if I mispronounce them, I'm sorry, but King Gorgoj, he's a legendary force for orcs. On his basic ability, Gigantic Cleavers, he attacks one enemy 2 times, stuns, has a 35% chance of placing a stun debuff. The chance increases with the target's turn meter is equal to or below 50%. So interesting mechanic. And we're seeing 5 books on the damage side, so it's never going to go any higher than a 35% chance. Attacks one enemy 4 times. Each critical hit has a 50% chance of decreasing the cooldown of Gore Maker by 1 turn. So we're seeing a cooldown of 4. On your 6th book, it comes down to a 3-turn cooldown. But attack an enemy 4 times, that would be nice. We're seeing a 2-time attack, a 4-time attack. Definitely feeling some Fire Knight out of this guy. He attacks all enemies, will ignore 20% of each target's defense, will further ignore 5% defense for each buff on the target on a 3-turn cooldown. That's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive for sure. You already got a stun. So this guy could definitely be a crowd control wave clearer for dungeons too. And then his passive ability, War Machine, increases this champion's speed by 6 and crit damage by 7% for each enemy this champion kills in a round. Stacks up to plus 30 speed and plus 35% crit damage. Stacks will reset if this champion is killed. Okay, so we're seeing he's increasing his own speed, he's increasing his crit damage. So you definitely want to pump up that crit rate, right? Well, we saw that in a couple with his second ability as well. And then whenever an enemy champion is revived, fills the champion's turn meter by 30% for each revived enemy. Then places a 50% increased attack buff and 30% increased damage buff on this champion for 1 turn. That is awesome. Doom Tower for sure. You see people get revived. There's like waves where I think it's Bushy, you kill him and then he comes back. There's like 3 or 4 of them on a wave. So for sure, that is cool. That is cool. Roxum is a magic affinity attack champion from Lizardmen. Karma Shift. Attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of filling the champion's turn meter by 10%. Also has a 50% chance of placing the perfect veil buff on this champion for 1 turn if this attack is critical. So when booked, that's a 60% chance. Perfect veil is extremely strong, so okay. Jungle Ambush attacks 1 enemy, fills this champion's turn meter by 50%. So we're already seeing a lot of turn meter manipulation here, so that's kind of cool. Has a 75% chance of placing a stun debuff for a target for 1 turn while under Veil or Perfect Veil. Okay, so that goes into his basic. Places a Perfect Veil buff on this champion for 2 turns after attacking without Veil or Perfect Veil buff on a 3-turn cooldown when booked. Goes up to a 75% chance and a 100% chance of placing that stun. Alright, so when I was reading this, I was like, how is the AI going to play it? But is it going to prioritize as A1? But now that I see it can place the Perfect Veil buff, okay. Then he has attack all enemies with a 75% chance of placing the strong version of decreased defense, and weaken debuff increases the cooldown of jungle ambush. Decreases the cooldown of jungle ambush by 2 turns. Okay. While under Veil or Perfect Veil debuff. While not under Veil or Perfect Veil debuff, he attack 1 enemy, places the strong version of decreased defense. So he only has an AoE when he's under Perfect Veil. And again, this places the Perfect Veil buff on him. 4-turn cooldown. Passive ability is Chameleon, places block debuffs and a 25% strengthen buff on this champion, and 15% continuous heal buff whenever they receive a Veil or Perfect Veil buff. And then he has an aura of crit rate and Doom Tower. Alright, so I'm seeing, what is it, Roxum? He seems like an arena champion. Doom Tower. I mean, he does offer the decreased defense, but what else he's bringing? I mean, you got a sleep debuff, a stun debuff. The clan boss doesn't really need that. You can't put that on dungeon bosses. You know, decreased defense and weaken is great, but definitely I'm seeing it more as arena and, you know, Doom Tower. With the crit rate and Doom Tower, that's pretty nice. Iron Braggo. He is legendary spirit, defense, and orcs. So that's the second orc we've already seen in a stronger faction. Okay. Molten Plumling attacks 1 enemy, has a 20% chance of decreasing the duration of all buffs by 1 turn. 30% when booked. Wow. Okay, on the basic, that is pretty sweet. Defense-based champion. I wonder how that would play out in clan boss. Fearless Charge places a 60% decreased debuff on all allies for 3 turns, then attacks 1 enemy, has a 75% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn, has a 75% chance of placing a stun debuff for 2 turns, and TED if the target has 2 or more buffs. Alright, so that kind of takes out the old clan boss thing. Another, I think that's a 4-turn cooldown. So I'll go down to a 3-turn cooldown. Takes it up to 100% chance. Battlestorm attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of placing Provoke debuff for 2 turns. Also places a 50% decreased attack debuff on all enemies for 2 turns if Iron Braggo is under increased defense buff. Alright, so you get that from the Fearless Charge, then you come in with the Battlestorm. Sorry, it's like 4 in the morning. Okay. And then it increases the defense of all allies by 10% of this champion's defense. That's cool. For survivability, that'd be really big. And then increases ally defense in Doom Tower. Right there. That's awesome. Definitely wave clear, Doom Tower, Faction Wars. Dungeon wave clear for sure. I mean, to provoke the stun. But increased defense on any dungeon is awesome. You put him with low HP with that high defense. He could take the brunt of the spiders, maybe. But yeah, he is an interesting kit, and I'd like to play around with him. The Iron Braggo. First epic on the list is Malga Steel Griddle, Dwarf, Spirit, HP. Okay, I'm going to take that. I mean, more dwarves the better. Inspiring Violence attacks one enemy has a 50% chance of removing a random debuff from an enemy ally. That goes up to 10, 20, 25, 75% chance when booked, but 8 epic books. Holy good God. Next one. Sheer Grit. Places a shield buff on all allies equal to 20% of this champion's max HP. She's an HP champion. Sweet. With a continuous heal buff for all allies for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. That shield goes up to a 40%. Oh man, that's awesome for Doom Tower. Instantly think the Beetle boss. Huge. Glorious Return. Revives 2 random allies at 20% health and 20% turn meter. Ascended. Revives 2 random allies with 20% HP and 20% turn meter, and then places a shield buff on the revived ally for 2 turns on a 5-turn cooldown. And then increases allies' HP in all battles by 5%. So the Glorious Return. I know that Master Butcher can revive, I believe. I think it's Master Butcher. But there's another reviver out there for the dwarves, but this is definitely more consistent and way better. You'd definitely have to book it to really make it worth its while, I guess, because especially on the AI, if you're autoing and only one person goes down, and then they use it, you got 7 turns, but it comes down to a 5 when booked. So, yeah, that would be really good, but again, we're seeing 8 books, 5 books, 15 books. It's crazy. Chancellor Yasmin, Epic Force Support Bannerlords. Basic ability, attacks one enemy. When ascended, places an extra hit if the target has no active buffs. Kind of underwhelming. Touch of Vigor. Pfft. Heals all allies by 40% of their max HP. Heals by 60%. Instead, if this ally has 50% HP or less. Alright, on a 2-turn cooldown, that's pretty solid on a 2-turn cooldown. Lulling Chant has a 50% chance of removing all buffs from all enemies, then placing a sleep debuff for 1 turn. All enemies who have active buffs. Okay, so if you don't remove the buffs, you're putting the sleep on. 4-turn cooldown, goes up to a 75% chance. Oh man, I'm seeing Faction Wars huge for the Bannerlords. And I need Bannerlords, so I'd take Chancellor like Yasmin. But how effective would she really be without books? You know, that'd be something to test out. Vogoth, Spirit HP from an Epic from Undead Hordes. Attacks one enemy 3 times. Each hit is a 30% chance of increasing the duration of one random debuff on the target by 1 turn. Alright, so we're seeing the multiple hits, so Fire Knight. One random debuff. Okay, I guess. I mean, for an epic, sure. Wave of Revelation. Attacks all enemies, has a 60% chance of placing a provoke debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. Also has a 60% chance of placing a 50% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns on targets who receive the provoke debuff. So you gotta land the provoke debuff, When booked, it goes up to a 75% chance on a 3-turn cooldown. AoE provoke is always nice, so cool. Seeing maybe, especially with that high HP, spiders, put that out on all the spiderlings and they only come after her. That'd be cool. Whenever this champion is attacked, heals all allies by 50% of the damage received. Oh yeah, that's huge. Only heals by 25% of the damage received from boss attacks. This champion only receives half the heals that all other allies receive. So, on a non-boss, she's healing for 25% on a boss. But I wonder if the spiderlings constitute a boss attack. So that's something to keep in mind. When attacked, places a leech buff on the attacker for 2 turns. If the attacker is under the provoke debuff placed by this champion, also has a 70% chance of increasing the cooldown of a random skill of the attacker by 2 turns. Only occurs once per attack. That's cool. You know, Mashallah is quickly becoming my favorite character in the game. And the more leeches out there, the better. So that would be kind of cool to see. Vogoth. Undead hordes. Cool. That would be cool. Armina. Epic magic attack and barbarians. Attacks one enemy, has a 35% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. Alright. Attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing the strong version of decreased attack debuff for 2 turns. Steals turn meter from targets under the decreased attack debuff. 100% chance when booked on a 3-turn cooldown. That's epic. Stun set. Yeah. Put Armina in a stun set. Ear Splitter Bellow decreases the turn meter of all enemies by 20%. Has a 75% chance, 100 when booked, of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn on enemies who have their turn meters fully depleted. Yeah. Crowd control champion. Right here. This is, I like Armina. I mean, it is attack, so it's going to be harder to keep alive, but wow. And then the passive fills this champion's turn meter by 10% for each time an enemy receives a stun debuff. So we have an AoE. Yeah, stun set. Armina goes in a stun set. Ursula the Mourner. Epic Void support Bannerlords. So we're seeing another Bannerlord here. Attacks 1 enemy on Lance of Penitence. Has a 40% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 10%. That goes up to a 55% chance. Alright, so a little turn meter reduction. Attacks all enemies has a 75% chance of placing a strong version of decreased attack for 2 turns. Also places a 50% increased attack buff on all allies for 2 turns. 3-turn cooldown. Wow. Wow, that's huge. Revives all dead allies with 75% HP. That's insane. Then fills their turn meter by 50%. Also places a 60% increased defense buff and a 25% strengthen buff on all allies for 3 turns. Now when booked, it's a 5-turn cooldown. And then speed and Doom Tower. Wow, this is one badass bitch right here. Ursula the Mourner. Okay. I don't really see a place she couldn't be used. I mean, you're getting decreased attack, increased defense, Doom Tower, Faction Wars, Arena. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Annex, Undead Horde, Spirit Attack, Epic Champion. Attacks 1 enemy 2 times. Each hit is a 30% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. Love that. Goes up to 35% chance, but on a basic where you're hitting 2 times, that's huge. A2 attacks 1 enemy 2 times. Each hit is a 75% chance of placing a 50% decreased accuracy and a 5% poison for 3 turns. That goes up to a 75% chance on a 3-turn cooldown. That'd be good, even for a Fire Knight. You go up, you hit twice. If you drop the shield, you put on the poison. Decrease accuracy. You see some dragon synergy. Attacks one enemy has a 75% chance. This is the A3 of placing a weakened debuff. Heals this champion by 50% of the damage inflicted. Goes up to 100% chance on a 3-turn cooldown. Low cooldown. I'm liking the low cooldowns. And then his passive on a 5-turn cooldown places a 60% increased debuff on this champion. Defense buff on this champion for 2 turns when their HP drops below 75%. Places a 50% attack buff on this champion for 2 turns when his HP drops below 50%. Then he has an active effect which grants an extra turn when this champion's HP drops below 10%. Alright, because that's cool, because notoriously attack champions are harder to keep alive, so he's doing more things to try to help himself stay alive, so that's pretty cool. I like that. Interesting kit, would like to play around with him. Annex. Freckin' the Fat. Another Barbarian. Spirit Affinity. Sizzling Strike, attacks one enemy, 40% chance of placing the strong version of decreased defense. Goes up to a 50% chance when booked. Brand of Shame. Attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance of placing HP burn debuff and 2 5% poison debuffs. So we're getting the decreased defense on the basic, HP burn and poison on a 4-turn cooldown when booked 3 turns. I like that. Clan Boss, for sure. The Frost Spider and Doom Tower, big. Places a 30% increase, beatdown, places increased crit rate and 30% increased crit damage buff on all allies except this champion for 3 turns. Then all allies except this champion attack the target for 1 turn. On a 4-turn cooldown, Fire Knight. Wow, I like this. I like the way this Farkin the Fat reads. Clan Boss would be huge. Fire Knight's huge. Deflects 20% of all incoming damage this champion receives to all allies. The damage will spread equally across all allies. So you pair Barbarian, right? You pair him with like Seal of the Drakes, who's constantly healing. That's pretty solid. Wow. Okay. I like that. I'd love this patch to drop before the polls start. Duhawk the Pierced. Orcs Magic Defense-based champion. Attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit is a 30% chance of placing a 50% decreased accuracy debuff for 2 turns. Goes up to a 40% chance. Attacks all enemies. 75% chance for the 50% decreased attack on a 3-turn cooldown for 2 turns. Also has a 75% chance of placing the strong decreased defense debuff for 2 turns on each critical hit. 3-turn cooldown. It goes up to 100% chance when booked. Places a provoke debuff for 1 turn on the target enemy. Also has a 75% chance of placing provoke debuff for 1 turn on 2 random enemies. Places a 30% reflect damage buff on this champion for 2 turns and an unkillable buff. Interesting. Faction Crypts. I wonder how this would play in an unkillable comp. Decrease accuracy on a basic. Decrease attack and decrease defense with a critical hit. Oh, the provoke wouldn't work. Okay, yeah. But you still have a 30% for reflect damage and an unkillable. That'd be interesting. Sanguinia, Sacred Order, Magic Support. Attacks 1 enemy 3 times. We're seeing, obviously, Fire Knight. Each hit is a 20% chance of decreasing the duration of 2 random buffs on the target. Potion keeps. Interesting. Places a block debuff on all allies and a continuous heal buff on all allies on a 3-turn cooldown. Wow. Attacks one enemy has a 75% chance of transferring all buffs from this champion to the target. Removes all debuffs from all allies except this champion. So if she has no buffs, is essentially when you want to use this on a 4-turn cooldown. And then increases accuracy in Doom Tower. Okay. That one's interesting. Old Hermit Yarg. Attacks one enemy. 30% chance of placing HP burn for 2 turns. For 40% chance when booked. Places a 50% increased attack buff on all allies for 2 turns and fills all allies' turn meter by 20% on a 3-turn cooldown. Revives 2 random allies at 60% HP and fills their turn meter by 40% and places a perfect veil debuff for 2 turns. 5-turn cooldown. Not a lot of books on this guy. This guy's interesting. So we're seeing HP burn. So, thinking the Frost Spider. Increase attack and to fill the turn meter. Wonder if he could take the role of like Apothecary. If you pulled him early in early clan boss teams, because you're getting revive out of it, you're getting the increase attack, you're getting the turn meter fill, and then you're just getting an HP burn. The only thing that Apothecary offers that he doesn't would be the speed, so that'd be sweet. Hugo, Epic Magic. Attacks one enemy, has a 35% chance of placing the Leech debuff for 2 turns. The chance increases by 5% for each alive enemy. Wave Clear. That's sweet. That's sweet. Attacks all enemies with a 75% chance of placing the big version of Decreased Defense for 2 turns. Also has a 50% chance of placing Block debuff or Block buff debuff for 2 turns. The chance of block buffs increases by 5% for each alive enemy on a 3-turn cooldown. Removes all heal reduction debuffs from all allies and removes 1 random debuff from all allies, then heals all allies by 20% of this champion's max HP. If all allies are dead, revives them for 50% and fills their turn meter by 50%. Wow. 4-turn cooldown. That's pretty sweet. That could be arena viable right there. That'd be super annoying. Places a 30% increased speed buff and block damage buff on this champion for 1 turn whenever this champion's last living ally is killed. So you essentially want him to be alive. Hugo seems like a lot of fun to play around with. Put some crowd control with 2 AoEs on 3 and 4 turn cooldowns when booked. Stun set, a lot of HP. That would be kind of cool. I like that. I like that kit. That's cool. Now the daily reward expansion. This will be the last addition to the daily login rewards, but fear not, it doesn't mean that we'll no longer be getting anything. Instead, the final tier will reset and repeat after you've claimed the final reward. You won't lose access to the previous tiers either. All daily login rewards available until now still remain. The final tier is merely added at the very end, much like we've done in the past. So you hit that 280 days, this one kicks in and just repeats itself. So you can't really judge it till you see it. But that's kind of half-assed in my opinion. So they can just put it on repeat. But if say you get a legendary book at the 30-day mark, it could be worth it. So we'll have to see what's actually on there. Miscellaneous, more slots for champion collection and artifact storage. Champion collection will go up from 200 to 300. Artifact storage goes from 700 to 1,000. Clan boss battles will always start in manual mode rather than an auto battle. Awesome. That's pretty good. Now, obviously, they're going to make you pay. It's either silver or gems. That's going to continue, but that's how it is. And that is really good for unkillable comps right there. But I hope that's not their quality of life features they were talking about. But there it is, my YouTube family. There is the breakdown of patch 3.2 and the champions who are coming in it. Let me know your favorite champion and who you'd like to play with most. And as always, if you're finding me for the first time and you're liking what you're seeing, click that subscribe button, turn on notifications, all the good stuff that goes along with it. For all my XMG family members out there, you know I love you. I'm out.